Hello everyone, welcome to News Extra, and today my guest is Anthony Murphy, the Scottsbluff Fire Department's Fire Marshal. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Wish I could say it was under necessarily better circumstances. The topic that we want to talk about is safety in daycares, and this in light of what happened earlier this month in Philadelphia, which was a really tragic situation.
It was.
Explain what happened in that case.
This was an in-home daycare where they provided overnight care for children, and sometime during the night a fire occurred, and unfortunately that night 5 children lost their lives, and I believe the provider was injured as well. Some of the things that we've learned of after the fire is this particular daycare home should have had 8 smoke alarms, only had 1, and it was in the attic. There were some previous violations there, and by no means do we want to armchair quarterback what happened. However, we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep that from happening locally.
Okay. Now, of course, there are certain standards that the daycares have to live up to as far as smoke detectors, things like that. All of those generally set by the state. But as far as daycares here in Scottsbluff, we have quite a number of them that are licensed, but potentially the bigger issue is those that are unlicensed.
Exactly. In the Scottsbluff zip code alone, I believe there's around 38 licensed daycares. The licensed daycares, as part of getting their license, they're going through fire and life safety inspections and going through that process. Probably our bigger concern is the ones that we don't know about. We don't have a way to help them through the process of where do you need these smoke alarms, what other precautions do we need to take to protect these kids. So of the number of unlicensed daycares, we just don't know where those exist and how to be able to help them meet code for the reasons that led to these tragedies.
And as far as daycare is concerned, where does somebody hit that threshold? Say they're looking after a neighbor's child during the daytime. Where is that threshold to where they need to be, get that license?
That's a great question. In the state of Nebraska and obviously here in Scottsbluff, the requirement is if you have 4 or more kids that are not your own.
Okay.
That's when it's required that those daycares go through that licensing process.
Okay, so there are a number of safety items that if you are a daycare provider, whether you have fewer than 4 or if you have more than 4 and should be licensed, that you need to go through for not only your own safety, but for the safety of the children. And we'll be back on News Extra in just a moment to talk with Anthony about that. And we're back on News Extra, and today we're talking about safety in daycare settings, specifically fire safety, and I have Scottsbluff Fire Department Fire Marshal Anthony Murphy with me. Again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
The situation in Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, I should say, that happened with five children losing their lives and some adults that were injured. We don't want to have that happen here. So there are a number of things that people need to be cognizant of when it comes to fire safety in a daycare setting. What are some of those things that they need to be cognizant of and prepared for to be safe?
First and foremost, I feel like we keep repeating ourselves a lot on working smoke alarms. However, even locally, the last 3 or 4 fires that we've had between Scottsbluff and Mitchell and just in the area in general, not a single one of them had working smoke alarms. Thankfully, in one instance, a dog woke them up. There's just been so many times that I feel like I'm on repeat, but working smoke alarms, making sure that you're maintaining those, keeping those batteries up to date if you don't have the 10-year batteries. So in addition to the smoke alarms, it's making sure you've got good exits from the home. Wherever you're providing child or adult care for that matter. We tend to think of daycare as children only, but there's also adult daycare services out there. Making sure that you've got the required number of exits at a minimum, and keeping the little ones away from furnaces and sources of heat. We don't want those injuries to happen. Smoking materials is another big one. making sure that those are used appropriately.
And sources of open flames, you need those. They're not allowed in a daycare setting.
Exactly. No candles, none of those types of devices either.
Also, some requirements when it comes to doors, surprisingly enough, which I wasn't aware of, when it comes to bathrooms and closets, things such as that.
Exactly, and one of the things that when we do a walkthrough with a home daycare or even a daycare facility for that matter, is making sure that children or the clients in general can't lock themselves into a bathroom or into a closet, that kind of thing. That way, if an emergency does happen, they're able to get out.
Now, obviously, the fire department is there to enforce the codes and do the inspections for the licenses. Once they've been granted, how often do those inspections happen after that?
Typically, it's on an every other year cycle, and yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Some of the in-home daycares, we want to work with those much more often than what we have been, especially the unlicensed ones. We reach out to us if parents out there, if you're not sure if your daycare is licensed or not, you can find that resource on the internet through Nebraska website. Ask us, ask your daycare provider if they've gone through a home safety inspection, and we're more than willing to do that. We're here to help. We want to make sure that the environment is safe.
I was going to say that not only are the formal inspections out there for the licensing requirements, but certainly the department is more than willing to come out if somebody, in between those official inspections, say, hey, would you come on out, take another look? I want to make sure we're all good to go. And in that case, it's not so much of an enforcement issue as more of, here's what you need to do to help get you up to speed.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. We're more than happy to answer questions. If there's a specific door knob you're looking at or have any questions in general, we'd much rather have that conversation than to respond to that emergency and find out something was incorrect.
So it's all about safety when it comes to taking care of children or adults in a licensed or an unlicensed daycare setting. And of course, whether or not you need a license set up by state law, 4 or more adults or children who are not directly related to you.
Yes.
in that case. And of course, the fire department here in Scottsbluff and other fire departments certainly available to help you as a resource to meet the safety needs for those children or adults as well as yourself.
Absolutely. Anytime.
And Anthony, thank you very much for joining us on News Extra today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.